Welcome to Sister My Soul, a podcast birthed out of our hearts. Two soul sisters with nearly 2 decades of combined wisdom as experts in our fields of holistic and alternative therapies. This is Carrie Campbell.
And I'm Victoria Jaswick. Our intention is to offer the essence of soul sister connection that calls us to our best. Nourishing conversation that deepens connection to self, soul, and one another.
For the next hour, we'll explore concepts, perspectives, transformational and healing tools that support us on our journey as women and sisters. We are so grateful you are here to join us for some nurturing
Sister My Soul time.
Hello and welcome to Sister My Soul. Today's podcast is entitled Giving and Receiving Love Unconditionally.
Love it.
Because we think of unconditional love and we always think about the giving side of that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the rewording of it kind of changes the whole focus.
It does. I had to think about it when you first said it because I was focusing on unconditional love, and then you reframed it. I was like, oh, yeah.
Giving and receiving love unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a difference.
It really is. You got to think about that for a minute.
Yeah. It's definitely the shift in my awareness of it has definitely made a difference, especially in my romantic relationship with my honey.
Yeah.
But we were kind of discussing this a little bit, was it yesterday? A couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
And you brought up the 5 love languages by Gary. What was his last name? Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I said yes, absolutely. That is primarily what was on my mind when this subject for the podcast came up for me. Mm-hmm. And so, talk a little bit about your exploration of that book and the concept of the 5 love languages, and I know that you kind of had something on your heart about that. So,
it just came to mind. I read it a long time ago, and I meant to review it for our podcast, but I didn't.
Okay.
I think that God just really wants me to show up and just have spontaneous conversations the way that we do.
We're so good at putting each other on the spot like that, aren't we?
I know, but I love it. No, I'm fine with it. I love that book, and it really does point out how, as we were talking about just before we started recording, how we give love in the way we want to be loved.
Yeah.
And so he captures in this book these 5 pretty common ways that we give love in order to receive love.
Right.
But if we can learn to be that way with our partners.
What is it? Gifting, acts of service, words of praise, affirmation. What do you remember?
Touch.
Yes.
What was the other one? If you know the 5th one, comment below. You can receive a book from Gary Chapman.
Right. Okay. And so I love the way he illuminates, because I think kind of as a culture that's not something that we really thought about.
Right.
Like, how do I feel loved? We just go along in our life saying, why don't I feel loved? Why don't I feel loved? I know this person is saying that they love me, but why don't I feel loved? And so I think that was a good thing to bring into our kind of collective awareness of, hey, there are kind of these 5 main ways that people typically feel loved. And while it's awesome to think that we can read a book and change the other person to love us in the way we need to be loved.
Wouldn't that be great? That's always our intention.
So far it hasn't worked for me.
Right. Well, it's because we're only taking it in consciously. We're not actually bringing it into a patterned way of being.
And when I even think about myself, we all want to feel loved. We all want to feel validated, especially from our romantic partner and from our families and closest friends.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like a lot of the times our focus is on the other person. Why am I not feeling loved by them? Putting kind of a lot of the pressure on them. And when I started to shift my focus of, okay, how am I know his love languages.
How do you know
what do
them?
I keep doing?
Yeah.
I keep getting him little cards, and I keep giving him little gifts, and I keep doing things for him, because those are my 2 main
I was just going to
acts
ask
of
you
service and
were.
gifting.
Yeah.
And then when I discovered that mine was gifting, there was some shame around that.
Oh, why?
I don't know. Why is it that somebody has to give a gift for me to feel loved? But that was because my mother had that lacking in her upbringing.
Oh.
And so that's how she showed a lot of her love, was by buying my brother and I gifts and things that made us happy and, that we got joy out of, that she got to see our joy, and that felt very loving.
Yes.
And so that's what I grew up with, that and acts of service, because she was always doing. So we were her life, and so she did so much for us.
It was very patterned in.
Yes, very ingrained. And so I feel like our love languages are ingrained.
Yes.
From upbringing, DNA, whatever. And so even though I was expecting my partner, hey, you know my love languages, why aren't you doing them? I was doing the very same thing. I was totally guilty.
Yeah, we always see it in our partner before we see it in ourselves.
Right?
Like all those things.
It's like, why can't he knows I like acts of service and gifts. Why can't he just do that? He keeps giving me words of praise. I don't need those.
I do.
You are fabulous, and I love you.
Yeah, that's definitely one of mine. I would say affirmation, but it's so funny.
Right.
Yeah, and one of your love languages, remembering my love language.
Right.
Just remember that. That's a lot of love.
So after, meditating upon such things as love and unconditional love, and then it shifted for me to giving and receiving love unconditionally. And the more unconditionally I can receive love, like that love doesn't have to look a certain way, be a certain thing. But this other person does plenty of things that lets me know that they love me if I'm looking in the right places.
Okay, so then you're defining that. So unconditional love in this regard is that you're just seeing attempts of giving love.
Or feeling. I mean, for me, I'm a feeler, and so I go through life feeling. And I know through that he loves me. And so the more... Yeah. Well, you can know from a heart space. You can know. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course.
The wisdom. The heart wisdom.
When I hear people say no, I think they're in their heads, but you are all no here.
I'm like, here.
Your heart.
But my brain wants to go, well, but I'm not getting it in the way that I'm used to getting it.
Yes.
My heart feels it. My heart knows it.
Right.
But because I'm not getting, then I'm putting conditions on the love others are giving me.
Yes. Right. Yes.
And that's not unconditional love.
Right. But that's the tricky part. So when you presented this topic to me, I was like, thought about it. And last night, I know this happens to you too. The night before a podcast, all of a sudden, Spirit's like, oh, you're going to talk about this here. Like,
kaboom.
So in the human experience, we are conditioned. The primary function of our brains connected to the human experience is to survive and keep us safe.
Yes.
So I make the distinction.
Energy centers.
Right. Yep. So in the human experience, we need to survive, and there could be fear connected, right? In our spirit, we are all love. We come from love. We are love. That's the unconditional energy. Yeah. That's the contrast. That's the ongoing, I think, between the brain and the heart. I feel love for my partner, but I don't feel safe because he's not doing what I wanted him to do, and now I'm feeling concerned, right?
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. It's noticing those, like for me, the more we meditate, the more we have that connection to, divine love, that we're already fulfilled in that love. All this is extra. But in the human experience, we can come from lack and not enough, and why aren't you doing this, and why am I not able to do that? So I was playing with that a little bit. The conditioned human experience that prevents us from seeing those beautiful flows of
unconditional love. Yeah.
Unconditional love for others, for ourselves. When we're filled up with that divine love, we're covered, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I was thinking along those lines, and I wanted to tell you this. I'm going to share it because I thought this was really popped into my mind this morning. My partner and I have been together for a long time, but we've had a couple of breaks. And one of the breaks, I had this feeling like I never again want to put a relationship before my relationship with God. So I did this 3-day journey of fasting and preparing, and I actually had a friend who's a minister do a river baptism. I went into
that's beautiful.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. And I did it on our anniversary date. And it really shifted everything. We did get back together, thank goodness, and we're happily together and engaged and lovely, lovely, beautiful, I almost said marriage. We're not married yet, but relationship.
Oh, but she told me about his proposal the other day. Oh my gosh.
It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so thoughtful.
Really, right? But
sweetness.
I think why we were able to get to this place that we are now is I put my connection with the divine first. Yeah. My connection to God, so that I don't expect my partner to fill everything up for me. That's all bonus and extra.
So important.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that really, I was thinking, where's the shift? I mean, believe me, I still have, we're humans.
Right. And so there's still going to be expectations, which is a big block for unconditional love, for feeling and giving and receiving unconditionally.
Right.
For certain.
Yeah.
Because where there is expectation, there are conditions.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. But how do we get past our human mind? Because everything we do is conditioned. You said that's familiar to you because your mom loved you that way.
Right.
So I guess this question arose in my mind: is it possible to have unconditional love or experience giving and receiving it? Is it possible completely in the human experience, or do we just have moments of it?
I think we have to replace expectation with intention.
Ah, yeah, good.
And so we have to set that strong intention, and we have to recondition ourselves.
That's it.
We really do.
Yes.
And we can only do that through sitting our hiney down and meditating. Because honestly, the only magic pill that there ever is in the world is meditation.
Absolutely.
Meditation, prayer. And those are kind of like synergistic for me. And so that's the only way. Through shifting our awareness, I've come to notice other little things that he does. And I'm like, oh, that felt really sweet. Whereas I wouldn't have before, because I had expectations of it looking a certain way.
Yes.
And so that is really what has helped, and preparing for this podcast, I, of course, started researching a little bit out there of, okay, I want to know, what do other people think of when they think of how can we give and receive love unconditionally? And all of them said, most all of the titles was unconditional love, unconditional love, unconditional love. There wasn't a whole lot of anything about giving and receiving love unconditionally.
Maybe this is your next book.
I gotta finish the first and second one. It's happening.
It is,
yeah. And so I came across this article by Matt Valentine on Goalcast. And, some of the little notes that he touched on were just really helpful. And one of them especially, I thought, wow, if we could all make that shift in our relationships, it would make a huge difference. And it was work tirelessly to understand your partner's perspective. Work tirelessly. Like, never give up.
I'm tired.
Never give up on trying to understand how our partner feels and sees things. Yeah. It's not in a sarcastic way. Like, I can understand why you would feel that way. Not that one. We've all given and received that one. And that one's not very fun.
That was really a perfect demonstration. I bet you've never
I never ever have. No.
Right.
And then his other ones was actively avoid holding grudges or seeking paybacks. Actively avoid.
Gotta let it go.
Holding grudges.
Just, resentment,
and
grudges.
Sometimes that's super difficult, especially when we are seeking validation for being right about whatever the situation is.
And there's that classic line, would you rather be right or would you rather be loved?
Yeah.
Which one? Your choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Or feel loved or give love or be happy. Or, So actively avoid holding grudges.
Yes.
So if we're actively avoiding holding grudges, that means we're letting go. Not always easy. And if we are working tirelessly to understand our partner's perspective of how they see and feel things about a situation, I mean, if we just, set the intention
Yes.
every day for a while, because that's what it takes, or maybe probably 30 times a day.
That's right.
For some of us.
Well,
I mean, if we're really new at working into that place of being really mindful about something, I mean, when I first started, I set an alarm every hour on the hour.
Yes.
And then I would go, okay, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? How am I acting? How am I,
It's the mindfulness. So think about when we start relationships, the honeymoon phase. It's all lovey, and it's just we're so great.
We're our best selves.
We are amazing. We feel good. We take extra care with our how we get ready, and
we want that other person to think we are the best thing since sliced bread.
And we go out of the way to think about what do they want, desire, all that.
We're doing exactly that.
Right?
We are tirelessly working.
There we are. Because we're mindful, because we're in our conscious mind, we are consciously aware, really present. Yeah. Then when we settle into relationships, get a little cozy.
Right.
I actually, too, think that honeymoon phase is, we see them as God sees them, and they see us as God sees us.
Yeah.
And it's bliss. It's bliss. And there's the potential of each
And then we get the glitch in the matrix.
I know. That was a good sound effect. Yeah. But I think that's where God puts it in our heart to love each other, so we can be reminded of our potential and see others' potentials. Yeah. But then we settle into our human patterning, all the conditioned things we know. We reference, what do we know about relationships from what did our parents do? What have we seen in the movies? That's where expectation comes from. And then we go into that unconscious stuff, and suddenly we're in our human experience, and we're in more fear, and we're seeing everything that doesn't measure up to what we want.
Because the basis of how we truly love others, whether it's conditionally or unconditionally, all depends on how much we love ourselves.
There you go.
And if we don't truly love self and don't love ourselves unconditionally, then once we settle in to the norm, how we really feel about ourselves when we're looking at ourselves in the mirror.
That's right.
We haven't done our mirror work that we talked about a few ago.
Episode 2, I think.
Yeah, so good. Yeah. And then we fall into the patterns of exactly how we love ourselves.
It's so good. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Like, there should be a sound effect for that.
Kaboom! No.
No. We'll put one in. But learning to love ourselves, or giving ourselves unconditional love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
we're so hard on ourselves.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. And so...
But see, this is, again, where we're wired in this way. When we fall in love, there's this expectation that finally I'm going to be loved and seen into my wholeness the way I've always desired, the way God loves us. But then we go, both partners go back into their doubt, fears, and limitations. And we're so wired to get on the external, in the human experience, what we want. But really, the healing is to cultivate it within ourselves. And then the external is bonus.
And what is that? I think our deepest internal fear is, if they really knew who I was, they might not love me.
Right.
Because that's how we feel about ourselves.
Yes.
Because we think those human faults that we have, those human characteristics that we have, that we feel make us unlovable.
Right.
That are reasons that we use for maybe not fully loving ourselves.
Yes.
We think once another person finds those out after the honeymoon, how could they love me?
Yes.
Really?
Right.
Now that they know I'm not perfect.
And then we set them up.
I can be a jerk sometimes.
Right. So that's our inner awareness, our inner dialogue. Right. And then we set our partners up. Well, if only they did this, that, or the other, then I would know I was lovable. And I'm not feeling that. So, right? Wow.
So in our most unlovable moments, we have to remember, and through mindfulness is the only way, and through that mirror work, really.
And to admit that, the mirror work is to what? What would you say?
Well, I was
in
just
that
going to
case?
say that we all have those human faults, but regardless of those human faults, we still have divine energy that makes up who we are.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So come back to ourselves.
Right. Absolutely.
And the awareness of that connection to who we truly are. Yeah. And if we can love ourselves there, meet ourselves there. And it's tricky. I mean, we really do get so mired. How can we not in the human experience?
We do.
And, Yeah, that's a really, and then going into fear. So again, that distinction, are you in fear or are you holding love for yourself and your partner? That's really rich. That's just, I want to just let that kind of soak in.
Yeah.
Just love. And it's, again, we want to go to our partner and say, help me make this better. But we need to take that personal responsibility for connecting back into love. That's a perfect place to meditate.
And really, it doesn't stop with our partners, you know? Learning to love, that's really what Sister My Soul is all about, is learning to embrace true deep friendship with one another. And I think that's something that we have and that we get to. And I think all relationships come in and out of that.
Right.
And if we can always bring the focus back around too, because even after the honeymoon period phase of a friendship, it's like, oh, we've had a few glitches. Oh no, she's seen my faults. Oh, does she still think I'm as fabulous as she thinks I am? She sounded like she thought I was.
Yeah.
And I think we go through that and we do that. And I think as women especially, we can be super hard on ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as you touched on just a moment ago, that fear place of being seen in our flaws and faults. Right. And even though someone speaks to, no, I want to love unconditionally, you go, yeah, I haven't always had that experience. And it can create the fear. And then fear creates separation from the other person, from our partner, from ourselves even. Yeah. And really, so you can't be holding a space of love without that connection. I was thinking about you, yoga teacher. Doesn't yoga mean, in Sanskrit, it means union, right?
Union, to yoke.
To yoke. So there again, staying yoked, staying in union with the divine allows more presence with friendships.
Always, the more we can flow in spirit, the easier
Right.
things are. And especially, when it comes to love, that's truly what divine spirit is pure love.
Pure love.
If we focus and set that mindfulness and that intention to do that.
That's it.
And cut ourselves some slack when we don't.
Exactly.
Because we're not going to get that perfect. We certainly aren't. The closest thing we get to unconditional love, if you have children, is for your children. And
that's what I was thinking.
They can, even if they make mistakes or what we perceive to be mistakes, we're like, we love them so deeply and unconditionally that we forgive and they hopefully forgive and forgive. And it's a different kind of love, but a very, very deep, unconditional love.
Yes.
I think the more we can move that into our romantic relationships and our friendships and just that, what kept playing through my mind is, I can't remember, I know that we touched on this in our opening podcast, but I don't know if we've revisited it since then, but that part about being a really good friend and having that mindfulness of nipping gossip in the bud and redirecting negative talk about other women. That right there is unconditional love.
Yeah.
And the person that is doing that, we have to give them unconditional love too. There are going to be challenging aspects of this giving and receiving love unconditionally. Absolutely. Yeah. Because we're going to do things that aren't pretty. Other people are going to do things that aren't pretty. And if we get in that habit of setting that intention, we have, and meditating upon that.
Yes, or having awareness. I really do think, not to make it, you can't simplify something so big as this, but to be aware of, am I in fear right now? Or is this person who's bringing gossip to me, that's fear. I'll gossip, I think, and, anything less than our higher self is fear, because we've lost connection to love. Yes. We've lost connection. As you were talking about that love of a child, that is the most pure, unconditional love. Why is that? They come right from God. They come right, they're just pure little love source. Bundles. And we can feel it and be reminded of it. It reminds me of that story. Did you ever hear the story that the two little kids, a newborn is born and the older sibling wants to spend time alone with the newborn, and the parents like, gosh, I don't know. We don't feel really comfortable with that. Yeah. But she's really persistent, little 3-year-old, and they let her go into the newborn's room and they have the door cracked so they can listen. This makes me cry when I think about it. she looks down at her little baby brother and she says, tell me what it's like, because I'm starting to forget.
Oh, that makes me cry.
Right? We start to forget where we come from and who we are and whose we are.
Right.
And then we get into fear, and then it's like, oh, maybe my partner can make it better, or this friend can make it better. And so coming back to that, remembering who we are, where we come from.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
There it is.
So beautiful, right?
I think that if we had a good record now of our podcast of crying and laughing. I love it.
Embracing it all.
Yeah,
Embracing it all.
So that for me, I mean, yes. It's okay, too, to be in the human experience and to notice that, too. And we can't escape that. I love Ram Dass's quote. He says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend some time with your family. Right? Like, oh, gosh, I thought I could love everybody unconditionally.
Right.
You know,
Human.
Human.
Absolutely.
But the awareness piece and the meditation piece, and you've talked about you.
And grace.
Grace.
You know, just giving one another so much grace.
Yes.
And, you know, I heard somebody say a little quote the other day that said the greatest gift you can give someone else is to love yourself fully, especially in close relationships, because the more we can love ourselves fully, the more free we are to love others.
Right.
From that space of an open heart. And
so that's it. And to have a beautiful friend that can mirror and remind you and call you back to yourself when you start to forget.
Yeah.
With grace, too.
Beautiful gifts we can give one another. And, you know, one of the other articles that I read by a gal, Kelly Benamati, was, you know, she talked about the loving self first. You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
And she touched on that love is actionable.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Actionable.
So do things to show your love.
To yourself, for yourself?
Actions.
Or?
Well, sure, for yourself, but that's number two in that. And, you know, and I've heard that compassion is love in action.
Yeah.
So love is in action, because we can say I love you till we're blue in the face, but if our actions don't show those that we are speaking those words to that we love them, then if they're just hearing it but not feeling it, so put action behind your saying I love you.
So what does that look like? Because that sounds like one of Gary Chapman's acts of service. So how are you making a distinction? What's put action? I mean, because I'm thinking love for me is more a feeling. Like somebody can say they love me, but I may feel something else is being communicated, and I'm like, right?
Is it because their actions are not showing you that?
Maybe. I have to think about that. I really do, because I think it's more of a feeling for me than an action. But that's tricky. I'll have to think about that. Yeah, it's a good one. I love that our podcasts give us things to think about. Like
something to think about, because you just stumped me a little bit. I'm like, well, I mean,
what does that
getting
look like
back
for
to
you,
those
then?
love languages.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, I think, yes, it's the shift that I have made in my personal relationships.
Yes.
Is working towards feeling love unconditionally. But I think that it's so helpful for us to focus on that giving of love.
Yes.
And if we know, I mean, when we're in close relationships, we know how our partners are partners.
Yeah, well,
men they do that sort of thing. Those little farts.
We're leaving this in. We're leaving this in. So perfect.
We know how, you know, whether it's consciously, subconsciously, we know and do things for our partners that don't give love. And we can definitely do things that make them feel not loved. Yeah. And so I think if we just focus on doing actions of love, being compassionate.
Yes.
that one that was on that other one. Never ceasing to seek understanding of their perspective.
Right. And trusting your partner when they say they love you, so that you can view them through the filter of love.
Right.
That I believe my partner or friend,
Right.
when she says she loves me, and that if I go into fear and start to doubt that, I have to remember. And this has happened a few times with us, because we've talked about, we're newish friends, and so if you don't respond to a text for a little while, I'll start to think, oh, maybe she really doesn't want to. She doesn't want to do the podcast. She doesn't want to hang out with me, and the wheels start to spin of fear. And it actually just happened.
We can all go into that place of that feeling of insecurity, I guess.
Right. Fear, insecurity. Yeah. So for me, I actually had to practice of letting it go and trusting. And what do I know about my friend who's told me? So what she told me, and what have I felt so far to be true?
And what has been your experience?
So there's the actions, the experience. Yeah, all woven in together. So often we have to remind ourselves when we notice the fear pulling us into insecurity or doubt.
Separate our story from the reality.
There it is.
Of,
yes.
Right. What we know to be true.
Yes. What we've experienced, what we felt. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good.
This is a good one. I'm going to watch this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything
I think
more?
that it's time to wrap this up.
Wrap it up with some unconditional love.
You're so corny. Like I said,
know.
Did we put that in the way?
I think
she is not just a little corny. She's the whole cob.
Whole cob. Hey,
the whole cob.
Go big or go home.
And I love her that way.
Yes, this has been really rich. I feel this conversation, and we hope that you do as well.
Very fed.
Yeah, nourished.
I hope this helps, even if it's in some small way.
Yes.
Begin to set those intentions.
Be aware.
Mindfulness towards loving, giving and receiving love unconditionally. And set your hiney down and meditate.
Yeah, really, truly.
Yeah.
And give us your feedback about what is the statement, giving and receiving love unconditionally, mean to you.
Yeah. We love that.
Yes.
All right. Have an absolutely beautiful day. And we love you. And thank you for joining with us today for this little snippet of Sister My Soul.
Yes. Peace and blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye.